So a year ago, we took a closer look at one of my favorite watches from Grand Seiko with the SBGA413 from the Four Seasons collection. It was the spring edition from that collection, and when seeing that watch in person, it just completely wowed me. I was almost lost for words in seeing it from the press photos and then seeing it in person. But at the time of actually reviewing that watch, the one that I originally had going into that video that was my favorite from the collection was the SBGA415. It was the winter edition, and easily was one of my favorite looking Grand Seiko watches, but today we have it here and we're gonna take a closer look. All right guys, before we jump too far in this video, I wanna give you guys a cool opportunity for a giveaway to win a free watch up to $1,500 in value from TeddyBaldassarre.com. So if you want to participate in this giveaway, link will be in the description. Fill out the form down below. You must include 3 watches that you would potentially purchase for $1,500. Ones of your favorites from the site. Just go ahead, shop around, grab 3 links, put them in there, and then one of those 3 watches at the time of announcing the winner would be made available to you, no charges at all, so you get the watch for free. Last time we did one of these, I think we had like 20,000 submissions, so don't get your hopes up too much, but you know, hey, there still is a chance. So check it out, link in the description down below. Make sure to follow all the instructions on the form, but wanted to make that known to all you guys if you do want the opportunity to enter. Now to take a closer look at this particular model from Grand Seiko, it was again released as part of Grand Seiko's Four Seasons collection. It was a collection that dedicated one model design aimed to represent the feelings of each season. Now the previous model we looked at again was the SBGA413, made to represent the spring equinox, matching the changing cherry blossoms that have become synonymous with the time of year in Japan. Now with the SBGA415, we have here something that's a bit different and resembling the deep snow of the winter with a bit more of a darker shade compared to the powdered white of the snowflake, for example, and channeling the pine trees crusted with snow as inspiration for its appearance more than that powdery effect. And that is actualized in both its overall texture, but also its color. So in this video, we're definitely going to do a deeper dive looking at this timepiece. Some of the overall descriptions might be similar to the SBGA413 video, but at the end, we'll definitely do a synopsis, maybe just showing some clips of comparing those 2 models next to each other, because ever since doing that review and just covering Grand Seiko a little bit more, these have been models been just asked about quite a bit, and even I think these were maybe the 2 ones people were deciding between, so we can kind of map that out at the end. So to begin, one of the leading attributes for the Four Seasons models are going to be their case shape, with this one separating from the 9S case, with the design here pulling the majority of its inspiration from the 62GS. The benefits of this case become apparent immediately when strapping this piece onto the wrist. It offers a more curved case architecture that will form to the wrist and avoid the sometimes high case height that just has happened quite a bit with some Grand Seiko watches, and typically they struggle with it. Also working in its favor is the high-grade titanium, which of course is going to be very lightweight, and offers a prominent bevel along the side in Zeratu polish, offering a striking presentation. Now the angular lugs are faceted at the ends to lead to, I would say, a piece that is not the most substantial across the wrist and has a polished exterior casting between the lugs. Now the 415 on the wrist is remarkably light, coming again in titanium and with stark accents throughout, which totals out to a form-fitting wear that wears slightly smaller than its proposed 40mm case, while still offering an unquestioned presence and kind of walking that line of a little sporty as well as some dressier undertones. Now the bracelet comes in matching titanium, featuring a mostly brushed finish with polished outer portions of the center link. Meeting along the underside at the clasp is a 2-button release clasp. The bracelet does feature a pin system rather than actually screwed in links, so one note there, and does have the help of 2 half links to get a better fit. This considered, the bracelet is a bit behind the tough, and I mean tough competition in the price range, but it does look great in its fusion to the case architecture. How the links meet up with the case, it all forms together really just cohesively. At the 3, we have a recessed crown that is set within the case that optically pulls from the east to west presence of the watch and protects the screw down crown in the process. So to speak to the dial here, and it is important to mark the differences since what appears in press photos versus what actually is offered in actuality are 2 very different things when you're talking about Grand Seiko. First off, I think the dials of the SBGA413 and the 415 are 2 of the best Grand Seiko just watches and dials that you're gonna find under $10,000. The central dial surface offers a rich texture that appears indiscriminate until looking closely at the details of the alternating just strokes that almost resemble the residual trail of that of a paintbrush just meandering across a canvas. So similar to the SBGA413, there's a bit of a trick with this watch when you get it under the light. That is when in lower lit environments, it hides its texture and leans more into its described color. And then when in light, it transforms more than the norm and giving an entirely different feel thanks to that textured and well-treated sapphire glass on top. Now, when examining under this context, you'll also notice other splashes that will make this dial glisten with the applied gold Grand Seiko logo. You got the applied faceted hour markers with polished sides that reflect light in an astonishing manner, with the same effect being followed by these sword-style hands that have kind of become a Grand Seiko signature at the center. And then you're also getting a drop of color with this gray dialed piece coming from that effortlessly smooth sweeping second hand coming in heat treated blue. From a more practical sense, the 415 comes equipped with a framed date window at the 3 and a power reserve at the 7, exhibiting a small rib finish following a concentric sequence, differing greatly from the unconventional finish surrounding it. And just because I did mention the 413 quite a bit, just to compare the two dials next to one another, for the most part entirely the same apart from color, but that's a big point at that. The 413 does, I think, astonish a little bit more when you look at just how the color is manipulated in different lighting conditions, turning pink to more of a whitish silver in some, while this 415 is more true to those just gray undertones that is being presented in press photos, as well as what's being described overall. And I don't think that's a bad thing at all, making this one probably a bit more versatile in many scenarios and still wowing in many instances when you look at this thing and its texturized surface, and probably does even further some of the actual just strokes of that surface level finish, given that it does have a darker surface. And of course with Grand Seiko, there's a lot of magic always happening within the cases themselves when looking at their movements. So within the SBGA 415, we have the spring drive caliber, the 9R65. It's a caliber, despite the high standards of the dial, does have an ability to go right neck and neck with it. At the time of the release of this watch in 2019, Grand Seiko was really just celebrating a special year for the manufacturer, celebrating that 20 years of the spring drive. And the movement overall is nothing short of groundbreaking in terms of its technological advancements, matching a quartz accuracy and sustained power reserve through use of a traditional mechanical mainspring. And it does all this by achieving an incredible level of accuracy while not sacrificing from the high level of finish of the movement itself, showcasing stripes across the bridges and hollowed out rotor with polished sides on both, with the full exposure of the glide wheel being on display. Now, I don't want to get too far into how the spring drive actually works because I've done an entire in-depth video about this that I can link to in the description, but just to go over this quickly because I always enjoy it and just seeing what Grand Seiko is delivering here, it's definitely an important thing in telling the story. And to really begin, you kind of have to look at that glide wheel that is on full display. It's basically the substitute for a balance wheel and works via a chain of components that replaces the traditional escapement with something called a tri-synchro regulator. So this system takes the mechanical energy stored in the mainspring and harnesses it to power a quartz oscillator to send a precise reference signal to an integrated circuit within that, through its location near copper wire, will send an electromagnetic impulse to the glide wheel to rotate freely 8 times per second in one direction. And as a byproduct of this, it will achieve a plus or minus accuracy rating of 15 seconds per month. And just as a reminder, a traditional cost certified movement from Switzerland is going to be -4 to +6 seconds a day in terms of deviation. So that is an important distinction to make. So simply put, it is a low friction movement with quartz level of accuracy that does not require the need of additional power supply, given it's actually being wound through a traditional winding mass and a rotor, while not sacrificing a level of finish in the process as well that typically comes from a lot of quartz watches. So the only thing to say is if only that insignia on the sapphire back wasn't obstructing the view of this actually very beautiful movement. So just to summarize here, hacking and hand winding on this movement. So hacking, stopping the second hand when pulling out the crown to the farthest position. You have a 72-hour power reserve and that accuracy of plus or minus 15 seconds per month. Now, every once in a while, there is a new release or a line of watches released by a brand that helps the brand just reach new heights. And I don't want to oversell the Four Seasons collections of being this just transformational collection of watches for Grand Seiko, but they were very important watches and I think helped set the tone in many ways for this common idea that many enthusiasts have that they're producing Grand Seiko is some of the best finished watches for the money. And when looking at the SBGA 413 and this 415, these are absolutely the epitome of that idea. The textured dial surface is first in class. The case finishing is beautiful. Of course, there are some things that they can continue to work on with the bracelets, as well as, not obstructing their beautiful movements and technical movements at that. But there's just so much on display here to like that is so different than what is usually seen in the market for this dollar amount. And between the 413 and the 415, I think if you saw my video, the 413, which definitely recommend watching after this, you get my feeling about these two models. In terms of where I was at originally, what I wanted to cover when doing the 413 was the actual 415. And now covering both of them, it's even harder to determine which one I like more. The 415, if I was probably gonna go for something that was a bit more versatile and I was saving up for something, that would probably be the direction I would go, just because it is typically maybe not as selling as much as the 413. I see a little bit more 415s available, and these are watches that I do see available at some ADs. I've been able to travel around to different ADs and have just seen some of these in the cases. So it seems like they're still at least floating out there, and you can find them. They're definitely in higher demand than a typical model from Grand Seiko, and for good reason. But if you're wanting something that's a bit different and a bit more daring, you have the 413 with that pink that isn't so pink. It's not something I think you have to be shying away from, but a very distinct looking color that you're probably not gonna see from anything else. Two of my favorite watches, no question. In terms of which one you go for, I really can't make that decision for you. I think personally for me, I'm a little bit less daring, so I probably would go for this 415, but truly beautiful watches, love these things, and the fact that now I can finally go full circle and look at these two next to each other and kind of compare a little bit more does, of course, make me feel a little bit more complete. But guys, I'd love to see your comments down below. What do you think of this 415? How would you compare it to some of the other Four Seasons models and other recent releases from Grand Seiko? What are your thoughts overall about this style, case design, dial, and all? I'd love to see comments down below. If you also enjoyed this video, thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. Really would appreciate that, because it does help out the channel a lot. Don't just say that. So thank you again for those that actually do that. Also, if you want to join that giveaway, link in the description to the form down below. Fill that out. Going to probably be announcing the winner here in the next couple of weeks, so act fast. I will definitely announce it in a video, so stay tuned for all the videos. I'll probably put it in the title somewhere, but get a lot of people that ask me, hey, did you announce the winner? Did you announce the winner? I'm gonna announce it on Instagram as well as YouTube, so just stay tuned. Follow me on both of those places so you can stay up to date with that. Also, be sure to follow our second review channel, where we cover some more watches every single week. So if you want more watch content, definitely a good place to go. But guys, thank you guys so much for watching. Be well, and I'll see you all very soon.